Hey guys, this is a pretty cool Flourish I made. It's like it's a card production. So let's say we had a card selected from the middle of the pack, and the card was the Queen of Diamonds. We then lost the Queen in the middle of the pack, gave the deck a few cuts, and then what we had is if we turn the deck over and snap with a cut, we can get one card turned face down in the middle of the pack, and that card is the Queen of Diamonds. So the trick's it's not really a trick, to be honest, but the flourish at the end was the flourish I made, where you take the card and you flick it onto the deck like that. So you can, I'm going to teach you how to do the flourish, and I'll give you some hints and tips and different ways to use it. So if any of you know how to do the duck change, which is a colour change, which is quite difficult to get perfect every time, that's what it looks like there. The duck change is a kind of, when you look at a lot of tutorials have how to do the duck change, they'll usually tell you that you need to, when you're doing the duck change, you need to you can be taught how to do the technique for it, but the only way that you can properly do it is by experimenting a lot of times. So it's not really about being taught how to do it, because it's like driving a car. You can't, when you're taught to drive a car, you can't be taught how to win. That's just how you decide to drive it when you're racing. So it's like this. I can teach you the technique on how to produce the card and how to do it, but a lot of it's experimentation. So first of all, it's a one-handed flourish, so you can be holding the deck in the other hand doing whatever you want. And but for the time being, I'll use this hand to tell you what's going on. So first of all, when you have the card and you're going to you've done a neat little production of a card, so the two of spades, and with the deck in the other hand, I'll just let it go. You're going to hold the card. If it's face up, it's the corners without the pips. It's the top right corner and the bottom left corner with your thumb, the thumb here and the middle finger here. So you can do it the other way around. You can have the top left and bottom right, but I'll tell you about that way afterwards. So you're going to start with the top right and bottom left. Now, if any of you have seen TricksterAP's double card production, this is what it looks like here. It's a little flourish that he made to make a double card look like a single, and it uses a lot of that in the production. So if you haven't seen his tutorial, I'd suggest checking it out, because that's also a nice flourish that you can learn to do when you produce a card. So let's say you've produced the Seven of Hearts, and that's their selection or whatever, and you're going to do his, and you're going to do my production. You need to know how to do this. Oh, sorry. You need to know how to do. Jeez, sorry. You need to know how to do this spin here. The next bit of his double card production is you're going to flick it around and hit his double. It's because it's a bit loose. It's meant to look like only one card when you do the flourish. But my one, you can do it with a double, but it has to be very tight and clean. It's very difficult to do with a double. So first of all, top right corner and bottom left, you're going to bend it up a bit. So if you can see, I'm bending it up into the curve of my hand here, and with my index finger, this one here, in case you don't know, going to take this top edge here, sorry, so you're bending it up, and this top edge here, you're going to pull up with your index finger, so it then swivels, sorry, it then swivels between your thumb and middle finger. At this point you'll be showing the card, but it doesn't matter because you're going to produce it anyway, it's a production. You're going to swivel it, rotate it through your thumb and middle finger, and with your index fingers curled, it's going to keep pushing until you're back in the same position, but your index finger is now underneath the card. Now what you're going to do next is, with your index finger, you're going to bring your index finger really close to your middle finger. You don't want to touch your middle finger and index finger because it won't do the flourish properly. But you want to have about 3mm gap between your ring finger, your middle finger and your index finger. So I'm just showing you what it's like underneath. At the moment you're like this. This is what the spectator's seeing. But underneath, your index finger is very close to your middle finger, and you're mostly bending the card with your thumb, but your index finger is going to help. Is going to guide the card into what's going to happen next. And what's going to happen next is this. It's like I said, it's mostly experimentation. But what happens next is that you're going to flick it from your hand, so the card is upside down. You're going to twizzle it once, you're going to flick it, and then that last bit is when you show the card. So what you need to do is first of all do that swivel, and then bring your index finger really close. And you don't, when you do this, you're going to let go with your thumb up here. Now what you don't want to do is here are the things not to do, because there are a lot of things that you shouldn't do when you're first doing this flourish. The first thing you don't want to do is you don't want to ping it up. You don't want to put pressure on it with your index finger. You don't want to ping it up like that. You just want to let go with your thumb, so that in slow motion what's happening is when my thumb lets go, because my index finger is close to my middle finger, the card is literally falling over my middle finger. But there's no doubt there's going to be a bit of pressure put on the card because it's bent. It's been bent up, so there's no doubt going to be some pressure on it. But you don't want to apply more pressure, because then the card will go flying, and it's quite difficult to adjust to where you're going to catch it. So I mean, you can do it, but it's you've got to have a lot of practice to do that, and you need to experiment a lot to do that. Also, what you don't want to do is when you're producing the card and you're in this position, you don't want to mistake your middle finger for your thumb. So when I first tried this, I let go of my middle finger, and that's what happens. It doesn't actually it kind of flicks backwards, and it's all awkward. Now sometimes you may do this subconsciously without realising before you've let go with your thumb, and it's kind of annoying, but there's not much you can do about that. You could do it as the flourish anyway. You could add it into the flourish instead of actually letting go with your thumb. You could let go with your middle finger, and the card will flick over your thumb much quicker, like this, and it will just go through this gap here, and it will then turn over. So like this. Oh, I let go of my thumb, sorry. So from here, the card will just flip over really quickly, but it doesn't look as nice because it's not as free. It looks a bit more forced. So you've got the card. You're gonna swivel it, and now I'm going to tell you where to put your hand in proportion to where the deck is. So first of all, it depends on how far apart your index finger is with your middle finger. So the further apart they are, the more sideways it's going to go. So if they're really close together, the card will go from, imagine if there's a line going from this corner of the card over to this corner. If you keep that line, that's where the card's going to go. So about here, the card will land about there. Now, if your index finger and middle finger are very far apart, you don't want to imagine that line. You want to imagine more of a line going from this corner of the card to the middle of the card. And you want to carry on that line, so go about here. And it kind of goes a bit more sideways, if you know what I mean. So it'll land about here. And my middle finger and index finger are more further apart, so it'll land about here. So as you can see, it's landing a bit more wider than it normally would. So if you want to do that, you'll be taking your hand about here and it will land a bit wider onto the deck. But if you want it to happen quickly, you want your middle finger and your index finger close together. Next is how much you're bending the card. So of course, the more you bend the card, the further it's going to ping forward. So if you're bending the card a lot, it will just go, instead of going like that, it'll go more about like this. So as you can see, it's going a lot further. The next thing is, what was I going to say next? Oh yeah, the next thing is doing it at the other corners. So instead of holding it top right and bottom left, you'll be holding top left and bottom right. And your middle finger, and again you're going to bend it up. And your index finger here is going to take the wider edge. You're going to swivel it round and push under. And again, you want your index finger and middle finger to be close together. But if you looked at the position of your fingers now, the card, when you let go with your thumb, is going to pretty much fall over your middle finger and index. So this is actually an easier way of doing it. But when you want to do it, you might want to twist your hand so the card is straight on, and it's a bit more simpler. However, if you don't twist your hand and the card's more of an angle, you just need to bear that in mind when you're flicking it, so that you get the flick to land on the deck the way you want it to. So, I think I've said pretty much everything. You just gotta experiment a lot with how much pressure you're putting on it, how much you're how far you're going to ping it, how far apart your middle finger and your index finger is. If you're going to do it instead of like this, you can do it like this. And otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. So it's a one-handed flourish, which I created on a variation of TricksterAP's double card or double lift flourish. So this is what his one looks like. You have a double lift here, and you've got the card, and you're just going to give it a twist and a spin, and it looks like you've got one card because it looks like so natural. But in actuality, I've dropped all the cards of the deck. It's not that one card. But anyway, that's pretty much it. So